A young scientist. Really, this topic is very young. So, thanks for giving me this opportunity. We have been talking about gold from waste, and let us see one more waste which can be converted to best. Distinct gut and vaginal microbiota profile in women with recurrent implantation failure and unexplained infertility. Our study design was to find out whether gut bacteria and infertility have any correlation. We know that a human body is a superorganism with visible organs and all the invisible microbes in the form of bacteria, viruses, fungi, archaea. And the oral, placental, vaginal, skin, gut microbiomes all have their roles in certain diseases. We know gut microbiome for obesity, diabetes, colorectal cancer, inflammatory disorders, and including neurodegenerative diseases. All diseases begin in the gut, that's what Hippocrates said. And our own Ayurveda says Amma, the undigested fermented substance that accumulate in the gut is the root cause of all internal diseases. The bacteria, the gut has the highest density of bacteria, mostly in trillions and more, with hundreds of species, lower in the upper digestive tract, but as you go down, they increase, and most of these are facultative and strict anaerobes. Firmicutes, bacteroidetes, and archaea and actinobacteria are the more important one. The gut microbiome influenced by age, diet, demography, malnutrition, antibiotics, probiotics will interact and has genetic variations with the human genome, making it healthy or making it diseased. And the critical role of gut bacteria in homeostasis, metabolism, and defense is already been proven. The human reproductive tract bacteria affects fertility outcome. There is a paper which says that vaginal bacteria at the time of embryo transfer, if the diversity index is high, the success is high. And the endometrial, endocervix, and ectocervix, the lactobacilli more than 95% increased IVF success rate, but more than 95 non-lactobacilli then reduced IVF success rate. So we were motivated to study that does the bacterial dysbiosis affect the infertility. So what did we do? We decided to conduct a study where we took 10 RIF women, 10 women with unexplained infertility, RIF is recurrent implantation failure, and 11 fertile women. When unexplained infertility, when nothing can be found out, or 3 IVFs have been failed, we call it as RIF, and we excluded all the factors like male factor, drugs, alcohol, diabetes, diarrhea, endocrinological anomaly, Asherman syndrome, and in RIF also adenomyosis, uterine tuberculosis, endometriosis, fibroids, other factors contributing to failures were removed. We found that the age group was almost the same, except in RIF it was 35. BMI of all the patients were nearly the same. What we did was, we called the patient, we collected their feces, sometimes we had to go to their place and collect it. Along with it, we also took a vaginal swab and buccal swab. But buccal swab did not give much information. These samples were then stored, and then after purification, 16S RNA sequencing was done. Alpha-beta diversity and differences in the taxa was analyzed. So this was the analysis that we got. And alpha diversity and beta diversity, and this is the individual composition of bacteria at the phylum level. Due to 5 minutes, I won't be able to go into detail. But what we found was the bacteroids were increased in RIF and unexplained infertility. Hungatella was increased in both the cases, whereas Prevotella 9 was decreased in both the unexplained and the RIF. So these infertile women were deficient in Prevotella. In the control, if you see, bacteroids was lowest and unexplained was highest. Hungatella was lowest in control in RIF, and unexplained it was very high. But if you see Prevotella, it was good in the control, 5.4, whereas in RIF and unexplained it was 0.78 and 0.63 only. So the results were that decreased within sample, that is alpha diversity was decreased in the infertile groups. So diversity is important, alpha diversity. No significant change in the beta diversity, no significant at taxa, but significant differences in taxa at the genus level, at the phylum level it was not seen. So the thing was that infertility is associated with a substantial reduction in Prevotella, butyrate producing gram-negative bacteria, and there was increase of bacteroids, that is gram-negative, related to bacteroides phyla. Hypothesis is that when you eat high fiber diet, there is more Prevotella in the gut. So it will increase the mucus layer and the Treg differentiation and anti-inflammatory response is there. Whereas when you use a high gluten diet, bovine milk, high fat diet, the permeability is increased, there is inflammatory response, autoimmunity, the gut permeability it increases, that is called leaky gut. And Prevotella, because of its property of mucin synthesis, maintains tight junction. So there is no leaking gut. But bacteroids, because it degrades the mucin, there is altered permeability, and that leaky gut can give rise to inflammation in the endometrium, which reduces the implantation, versus when there is a healthy gut, there is no inflammation, there is no leaky gut, the implantation rate increases. The sample size was small, so our paper we would require to do a multi-center trial. Also, we did not do the analysis of butyrate, acetate and lactate in the fecal samples. That should have been done. The cytokines and immune molecules should have been done. And the another important thing is that the fecal samples from infertile patients into germ-free mice could have been tried. So these are the limitations, the factors that modulate and the composition and function of the human gut bacteria. But with a large multi-center study and studying all these molecules, we can hypothesize that fecal banking for treating infertility can be a future if we find out a test to find out in the unexplained and recurrent implantation failure patient that which is the bacteria they are lacking in, how we can treat it, whether it could be a laryngoscopic or an endoscopic implant of the fecal material, or you can create capsules of fecal material from healthy fertile women and insert it, and this can be done with an animal trial. And if we try to prove this and if we get an answer, fecal biobanking for infertile, unexplained and recurrent implantation failure could be a boon. Thank you.
Very nice. Very well summarized in 5 minutes. Any question from the audience? Please.
Hello. Am I audible?
Yes.
One question, like, as in case of humans, as you said, one of the Prevotella, the percentage, the concentration was lesser. We find, I'm a veterinarian, I find in cows they are not meat eaters. They only feed on grasses and concentrates. So Prevotella is not only the factor, they also become infertile. So how do you?
I mean, we have done a comparison. Few slides are omitted that we have seen the diet, non-vegetarian, vegetarian. It was comparable. So we could at least hypothesize in this small group that diet, whether vegetarian or non-vegetarian, did not matter in this particular study. But our conclusion was definitely that mucin-producing Prevotella should be in good numbers to prevent that inflammatory gut dysbiosis leading to infertility.
I have a small question. And does your vaginal results also concur with the fecal result that you shown here?
That's very interesting. The vaginal swabs that we took, we could not get in some of the patients enough library and reads to analyze it. But whatever we analyzed, we found that the vaginal dysbiosis was not responsible. It was the gut. And even if the gut was dysbiotic, the vaginal showed that it was huge prebiosis. It was not dysbiotic. So we have, as of now, not considered vaginal dysbiosis for this failure, but there are many studies coming up where they say endometrial, where they say vaginal. In fact, recently Denmark has published vaginal microbiota transplant also. But that is the future to be seen. What I feel is that, and we from our hypothesis, that gut is more important. Don't just look at the last end organ of endometrium or vagina.
And what were the confounding factors that you corrected for any one of these?
Sorry?
What were the confounding factors that you corrected the results for?
We did not do any treatment based on this. But what we have started now, I don't know whether it will be very scientific, but I believe in Panchkarma treatment. And Panchkarma treatment we felt is improving the gut of the patient. And after this, we are coming up with a combined paper of IVF failures, doing Panchkarma, all the 6, and then doing a transfer or natural conception. And about 25 patients data we have collected, and we are going to, based on this, we were interested in doing Panchkarma to improve the gut dysbiosis. That is all we have done. But the future could be a test for an infertility patient and a treatment based on this. Probiotic, fecal capsules, as I said, or transplant.
Dr. Patel, thanks.
Thank you.